Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Liz, and in today's video, I'm gonna show you how to make a custom doormat. I've been seeing on Instagram and Etsy all of these custom doormats that are like $40, $50, and they're really cute, but I'm gonna show you how you can make your own and for a fraction of the cost. Okay, so the first thing I do is start on Etsy. Now, you guys can make your own files if you want. I don't know, sometimes for me, I just think it's worth it to just go buy a file on Etsy, upload it, and use it. So that's what I do. So I go to Etsy, I search for the files that I want, and they're usually around $1 to $3. So what you want to search is for a SVG file. And these are the ones that are going to work for cutting out on Cricut. So I found a welcome file that I wanted, and then I also got another one because I wanted to make a mat for the front of my camper. So I found this cute little one that says, "Let's stay outside." Thought that'd be perfect for my camper. So I bought both of those, downloaded them, and then you can just upload them into Cricut Design Space. So I'm gonna start by doing my front door mat, which is where I'm gonna use the welcome sign. So what you wanna do is just upload that into the Design Space. Once you get it there, you can resize it to be whatever size you want. Now, the largest that my Cricut will cut is 12 by 24. So I try to keep it between that amount. But it also depends on the size of your rug that you're using. So the mats that I picked up were from IKEA. The first one that I'm using for my front door is a large one. It's 35 inches by 23 inches, and it's $9.99 at IKEA, which I think is a great deal, and it's completely plain. They also have a smaller one that's $5 that I'm gonna be using a little bit later for my camper. So I'm just going to resize my welcome sign so it will fit within that 12 to 24 frame. Now I'm going to add in the Fenwicks at the bottom. So to do that, I just went and got a little text block, picked out the text that I wanted to use, typed it out in bold letters. And then I resized it so it fit well underneath it. Now before you click make it, you want to take your cursor and pull it down over all of your text. And then you're gonna right click and click the word weld. This is just going to hold all your text together so that when you go to make it, it's not gonna like jumble it all up to save space. So the next thing you're gonna do is click make it. And this is going to show you how it's going to look on your mat. If you're not happy with it, just click back and rework it until you're happy with it. Okay, so I don't have a 12 by 24 mat. So what I do is I take two 12 by 12 mats, put them next to each other, and then put them with painter's tape. Now I will say at first I overlap them. You don't want to do that. It's not going to flow through the Cricut very well. Just put them side to side and cover them on the front and back with painter's tape. And then you have a 12 by 24 mat. Now, since this is just going to be a stencil I'm making, I like to use contact paper. You can use Cricut vinyl, you could use, any kind of vinyl you have, but that's just a little bit more expensive. So I am using the contact paper, just some contact paper I had on hand. Use whatever you have. And I'm just going to lay it out on my mat. Make sure that you cut it so you don't have any contact paper hanging over your edges. Now you're ready to cut out your image. So what you're going to do is just make sure the dial is turned to vinyl, and then you're just going to click the C to cut it out. Make sure that wherever you have your Cricut placed, that you have room on the back, because this will be traveling quite a ways to the back, and you want to make sure that it doesn't hit the wall and mess it all up. So just make sure that your Cricut's pulled away from the wall. Once it's done cutting, I'm going to weed the image out, which basically means I'm going to pull out all of the lettering. Next, I'll remove the backing to my contact paper and I will center it onto my rug. Now to help me center it, I will be measuring on both sides. This really helps to make sure that it's even, and just do your best to try to get it in the center as much as you can. Next, I'm going to be using black by Waverly, I think it's called Ink, and a stencil brush by Dollar Tree. Normal stenciling rules don't really apply here. So usually when you stencil, you want to use a little amount of paint, but you can't really do that with this rug. So you actually want to use quite a bit of paint just so that you get the coverage in those bristles that you need. Once I pulled the stencil off, I was happy with it, but I was kind of underestimating the size of my mat. So I wanted to do something to make it have a little bit more presence. So I took my painter's tape and I did some stripes along the edges. And this was just something I did freehand. I didn't really measure it much. And then I'm gonna come in with that same black paint and just stencil in my stripes. Next, you can just remove the painter's tape, and I think that the stripes made a huge difference. Now, one step you don't want to forget is you want to make sure that you seal it. I'm using this Krylon matte finish, especially if your mat's going to be outside. You want to make sure that you do a nice coat of this over the top. And here's a look at how my first mat turned out. Now, if you're looking for a mat that's a little bit smaller and has more of an intricate design, I would definitely pick up this smaller mat that I got at IKEA for only $5. Like, I think that that is crazy. I did this one a little bit different, so I'll share with you which style I thought was best for applying the stencil. So like the first one, I just uploaded my file that says, "Let's stay outside," and I just resized it. I also added in the Fenwicks in capital block letters. Now, one thing I learned from doing the first one was that my block letters weren't really big enough. So I actually made these block letters bigger because they would be easier to stencil. You want to avoid super thin text because that's really hard to stencil. So my next step was to weed out the letters. So I decided I was going to try to add transfer tape and see if that would make this process be a little bit easier of getting it onto my rug, but it didn't work out well. One of the main problems with this is that the contact paper wasn't sticking well to my rug. It was almost just like it was kind of, you know, sitting on it but wasn't sticking. So once I got it centered, I'm just going to stencil it with that same black ink and my same stencil brush. From there, I'm going to add in the Fenwicks at the bottom. Now, the reason I kept these files separate is I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted the lettering to go. I wanted the option to be able to move my text around at the bottom, so I kept those two files separate. So your final step would just be to seal it with that same matte finish. And here's a look at how my camper mat turned out. So a few things that I learned from doing this. One, block letters are a lot easier to do than cursive letters. So you may want to think about that whenever you're picking out your text. The other thing that I learned was that the contact paper did not stick to this rug. So you may want to try using your vinyl and see if it sticks any better. This just didn't stick well. If you had really thick plastic that you could cut out, that would be great too, and you could just use it as a template. But for what I had on hand, I think that it worked out pretty well. For having the contact paper on hand and wanting to do it inexpensively, it worked out well. I just had to spend more time like positioning it out. I love how this turned out. I definitely think I'm gonna keep doing this in the future. So let me know in the comments below if you're gonna try this project out and what you're going to put on your front door mat. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I post 3 DIYs each week. If you missed our last one, I'll link it here for you, and I'll talk to you in our next one. Bye.